There is a weight that no hand can measure and no scale can define. It does not rest on your shoulders, but you feel it pressing down. It does not bind your ankles, yet it keeps you from rising. And it is this weight, invisible, yet undeniable, that keeps so many of us from taking the flight into peace, into purpose, into freedom. It is the weight of what we refuse to release. The stories we rehearse, the wounds we keep fresh, the guilt we cradle like a memory we believe we must protect. And though we long to soar, we stay grounded because we've convinced ourselves that to let go is to forget, but forgetting is not the way forward. Releasing is. You cannot take flight while dragging yesterday behind you like a rusted anchor. You cannot rise into the light of your divine essence while gripping the shadows of resentment. The soul was not designed for heaviness. The soul was made to move like wind through skylight, spacious, free, but ego convinces us that our identity depends on the weight we carry, that our suffering is who we are, that our hurt makes us real. And so we hold on, we grip tightly to the pain, thinking it gives us meaning. But I ask you now, what has pain truly given you besides more of itself? You were not born into this world to suffer endlessly under the burden of your past. You were not sent here by Source to collect wounds like medals and wear your trauma like a crown of proof. You were born to remember that you are already whole, already enough, already free. But you cannot awaken to that truth if your hands are full of what no longer serves you. Flight requires emptiness. Not emptiness in the sense of lack, but the kind of emptiness that is sacred, the emptiness of surrender, of openness, of trust. Birds do not rise by adding more weight to their wings. They rise because they were never meant to carry anything but the wind. And you, dear soul, were never meant to carry all that you're holding. Let go. Not because it erases the past, but because the past was never meant to be your prison. Let go of who they said you were. Let go of what didn't happen the way you hoped. Let go of the apology that never came. Let go of the outcome you never received. Let go of the belief that you are broken. You are not broken. You are burdened. And there's a great difference. A bird with a stone in its beak is not incapable of flight. It simply needs to drop what it's holding. And the most powerful act you can perform in this lifetime is to unclench your spiritual fists and release what you've clung to for far too long. We live in a world that glorifies accumulation of things, of titles, of experiences, but also of wounds, of grievances, of stories. But your path to peace is subtraction, not addition. Every spiritual master, every awakened soul, every truly liberated being will tell you it's not what you gain that sets you free, it's what you release. The Buddha did not awaken by becoming more. He awakened by becoming less identified with form, with desire, with self. What are you willing to become less of so that you can become more of what you truly are? Are you willing to be less right so you can be more peaceful? Are you willing to be less certain so you can be more trusting? Are you willing to be less attached so you can be more free? Because to fly, you must let the heaviness fall away. And the heaviest thing you carry is the belief that you must carry it. There is a sacred law of the universe that is always at work. The more you resist letting go, the more you attract situations that force you to. Because your soul knows what your ego denies that your healing is in the release. That freedom is not granted by anything outside you. It is unveiled when you unbind yourself from within. So many people pray for peace but refuse to put down the sword. So many seek happiness while holding on to what hurts. But you cannot have both. You cannot live in the light and feed the shadows. You cannot ascend while gripping the ground, and you cannot evolve while protecting your pain. You have a choice. And this moment, this very breath, is the threshold. You can continue to identify with your wounds. you can keep rehearsing the stories of what they did, what you lost, what didn't go your way. Or you can stop. You can take a holy pause and you can say to yourself, I've carried this long enough. I don't need this to be me anymore. This is not denial. This is liberation. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is wisdom. Releasing is not passive. It is powerful. It is not forgetting the past. It is understanding that your past does not have the authority to define your future unless you keep giving it the microphone. You came here to transcend, to transmute, to rise beyond, not to escape life, but to remember who you are within it. And you are not the hurt you experienced. You are the awareness that held it. You are not the betrayal. You are the witness. You are not the grief. You are the vast presence in which that grief arose and passed. You are not the weight. You are the sky. And nothing that happened in your story is heavy enough to keep you from remembering your true nature unless you decide it is. Take a moment now, not with your mind, but with your heart. Ask yourself quietly, what have I made heavier than it needs to be? What story are you still living inside of that no longer matches your vision of peace? What label, what memory, what name or identity have you fused with your sense of self, and does it still serve your highest path? If it doesn't, let it go. If it hurts, bless it and let it go. If it stirs up anger, acknowledge it and let it go. If it makes you feel like less than the infinite soul you are, breathe deeply and let it go. No one will do this for you. This is your sacred responsibility. No one else is inside your consciousness with a broom, sweeping out the resentment, the doubt, the guilt. Only you can do that. And you do it not because others deserve it, but because you do. You deserve peace. You deserve to wake up unburdened. You deserve to feel light. And flight, true spiritual flight, is what happens when the soul remembers that its natural state is freedom. You are not your wounds. You are not your fears. You are not the broken dreams or the roads that didn't lead where you hoped. You are the one who has survived it all and now stands at the edge of a new becoming. But you can't take off until you release what weighs you down. The caterpillar must surrender the ground before it becomes the butterfly. The leaf must release the tree to dance with the wind. And the soul must release the ego's grip to remember it was never confined to begin with. Release is the sacred act of trust. It is saying to the universe, I no longer choose to carry what you never asked me to hold. You don't heal by holding tighter. You heal by surrendering. And as you surrender, a miracle occurs. The heart begins to lighten. The breath deepens. The mind softens. The world looks less threatening. Love finds you more easily. Joy visits more often. And suddenly, the life you were meant to live is no longer on hold because you stopped carrying the delay disguised as pain. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where you need to be to remember the sky has always been waiting for you to rise. So often we say we want to be free, but what we really mean is we want to be free on our terms. We want to let go, but only if we know what will come next. We want to trust, but only if we can control the outcome. And this is where most souls stall. Not because life isn't offering us wings, but because we're still trying to fly while dragging the ground behind us. But let me ask you this. Has clinging ever brought you peace? Has gripping ever led to grace? Or have you noticed that every time you let go, really let go, the next step appeared more clearly, the burden grew lighter, and something inside you finally exhaled? The irony of the spiritual path is that we do not grow by adding more. We grow by shedding what was never us to begin with. Not one layer of pain was your true self. Not one scar defined you. Not one fearful thought ever spoke with the voice of your soul. And yet, we identify with them because we've forgotten the art of being rather than becoming. We think we must become something extraordinary. But the soul is already extraordinary. The only task is to remove what clouds that remembrance, like a sculptor chipping away at marble to reveal the figure within your journey. It's not about chasing something new. It's about uncovering what has always been there. Your divine essence, and this essence is weightless. You do not need to fix yourself. You only need to free yourself. You don't need to gather more knowledge. You need to unlearn the lies. You don't need to become powerful. You already are. You simply need to drop the thoughts, the judgments, the traumas, and the identities that told you otherwise. The ego says, you must be more. The soul whispers, you already are. And when you listen closely, you will hear that whisper underneath every heartbeat, every breath, every still moment where you're not trying to be anything, you are simply present. In that moment, you are flying. Because flight is not a destination, it is a state of being. It is alignment with who you truly are beneath the noise. Now, you may ask, how do I begin to let go? You begin by notice when a thought carries heaviness. Notice when a memory returns not to heal you, but to punish you. Notice when a belief makes your chest tight or your energy dim. That is not truth. That is ego disguised as memory. And you have the power right here, right now, to witness it, thank it for its role, and release it like a bird from the cage of your mind. This is not a one-time act. It is a sacred practice. Every day, you must ask yourself, does this thought serve my flight? Does this feeling expand me or bind me? Is this belief lifting me or holding me down? If it is not helping you soar, it is not coming from your highest self. Release it. You don't need it. And in its place, choose a lighter thought, a loving thought, a truer thought. Choose gratitude over grievance. Choose faith over fear. Choose now over then. And choose to see every single moment of your life, even the painful ones, as teachers rather than burdens. Because when you shift your perception, what once weighed you down becomes the very force that lifts you. Do you see the paradox? What was once pain becomes purpose. What was once failure becomes foundation. What was once sorrow becomes spaciousness. But only when you stop resisting, only when you stop identifying with it as you. And in that sacred shift, the alchemy of awakening your soul begins to remember you were never the wound. You were always the healer. You were never the broken piece. You were always the whole. You were never the story. You were always the silent awareness in which the story unfolded. And you were never meant to carry it all. That was never your purpose. So ask yourself now, what is the weight I've been carrying that I no longer wish to bring into tomorrow? Perhaps it's the weight of comparison, the belief that you must measure your worth against others. That if someone else succeeds, you've somehow failed. That your path must look like theirs to be valid. But the truth is, no two souls have the same sky to fly in. You have your own direction, your own design, your own sacred winds. And when you stop comparing your flight to someone else's, you begin to soar in your own unique rhythm. Or perhaps it's the weight of shame, the echo of past choices you no longer align with. But hear this with all your heart. You are not your past. You are the awareness that learned from it. Guilt serves no one when it becomes a home. Let it be a guide, not a jail. Take the lesson, release the judgment, and free yourself. The soul does not evolve by condemning itself. It evolves by choosing love again and again. Maybe the weight you carry is anger that hot, consuming fire that promises strength but only burns the vessel that holds it. Anger often masks grief, and grief is love with nowhere to go. Let it go. Not for them, for you. Because you were not born to be consumed by flames. You were born to be illuminated by light. Or perhaps it's the weight of the unknown, the fear of what you can't control, can't see, can't predict. But my friend, life was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be trusted. Faith is the wings, uncertainty is the sky, and trust is the wind beneath it all. When you stop needing to know where you're going, you finally arrive in the now, and the now is the only place you ever truly had to be. So much of what we carry isn't ours to hold. We carry expectations we never agreed to, roles we never wanted, pain passed down through generations. But just because it's been handed to you does not mean you have to carry it forward. The chain ends when you say it does. The pattern dissolves when you choose to wake up. And waking up isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's simply a moment of quiet clarity when you sit alone with your breath and realize, I'm done carrying what doesn't feel like love. That's the moment the flight begins. And once you taste it, even once, you will never forget what it feels like to be free. There is something miraculous that happens when you no longer resist the falling away, when you no longer mourn what is leaving, but bless it on its way. In that holy space, you are not losing, you are remembering. You are not being emptied, you are being refined. The acorn must crack for the oak to emerge. The shell must break for the light to pour in. And yes, it feels like loss, but in truth, it is birth. The death of who you are not is the beginning of who you've always been. Do not grieve what you release. It was never yours to keep. You are not here to hoard old identities. You are here to embody truth. And truth is light. Truth is weightless. Truth needs no defense, no protection, no mask. The most powerful thing you can do in a world obsessed with appearance is to become weightless, to become real, to say, I don't need to hold this story anymore. I don't need to defend this pain. I don't need to explain why I'm healing. I only need to return to peace. Because peace does not argue. Peace does not beg. Peace does not carry a ledger of wrongs. It does not keep score. Peace simply is. And when you stop trying to earn it, when you stop believing it must be deserved, you realize peace is your natural state. You were never without it. You were only distracted. The distractions came in many forms. The noise of comparison, the addiction to busyness, the need to be seen, the compulsion to be understood. But peace never left you. It was waiting quietly underneath the rubble of all that trying. Flight is not about rising above others. It is about rising above the noise, the inner dialogue that says, you're not enough, you haven't done enough, you don't deserve rest. That voice is not the voice of God. That is the voice of conditioning. And the moment you stop identifying with it, you begin to fly. Because flight isn't about escaping life, it's about engaging life from a higher vantage point. When a bird soars above the storm, it's not avoiding the sky, it's simply rising to where the storm no longer reaches. And so must you. There will always be chaos on the ground, always some drama, some fear, some grievance pulling at your feet. But you are not your feet, you are your wings. And your wings are made of faith, of surrender, of the deep knowing that you are carried by something greater than circumstance. What is this something greater? Call it what you will. God, Source, the Tao, divine intelligence. The name matters less than the experience of it. And the experience of it is this: peace without reason, joy without cause, love without condition. When you rest in that space, you will realize nothing was ever missing. You just couldn't feel it through the weight you were carrying. Release is the doorway to the divine. You do not need to beg the universe for peace. You need only make space for it. Peace does not need to be created. It only needs to be uncovered. Imagine your soul as a radiant sun always shining. The clouds of resentment, fear, guilt, and control only obscure it, never extinguish it. The work is not to chase light. The work is to dissolve clouds. And how do you dissolve a cloud? Not with force, not with war, with awareness. Awareness is the great dissolver. When you see clearly what you've been carrying without judgment, without shame, the weight begins to lift. So take a breath now and simply ask, what am I ready to see? What truth have I avoided? Because I feared what it would ask me to release. Perhaps it's the truth that your identity is not in your trauma. Perhaps it's the truth that your worth is not defined by your productivity. Perhaps it's the truth that your pain has been a teacher, not a punishment. Or perhaps it's the truth that you're allowed to let go, even if no one else says sorry. There are no prerequisites to freedom. There is only your decision, your inner yes. And the moment you say yes to release, the sky opens, the burdens loosen, and your wings begin to stretch again. But the ego will not go quietly. It will tell you, if you let go, you'll be exposed. If you release control, you'll fall. If you forgive, you'll be weak. None of that is true. It is the ego that fears the sky because it cannot survive in openness. The ego feeds on structure, on story, on certainty. But the soul is water. The soul is wind. The soul is light. It cannot be contained. And when you live from soul, you do not need to know. You only need to be. There is an ancient wisdom that lives inside you, a compass that doesn't use logic but resonance. You feel it when you are near truth. You feel it when you are near joy. You feel it when something heavy suddenly feels light. And you know this is the path. Follow that. That is your wings speaking. And they will never lead you astray. But you must be willing to silence the noise, to step away from the collective panic, the chronic comparison, the constant mental commentary. You must dare to pause, to breathe, to listen inwardly, because in that space, the divine speaks, not with thunder, but with stillness, not with answers, but with presence. And that presence is what lifts you. You are not waiting for the sky to open. You are remembering that you are already in it. The weight you've been carrying is not keeping you grounded. It's keeping you distracted from the fact that you are already soaring. You just haven't opened your eyes to it. The more you release, the clearer you see, the lighter you become, and the more you begin to trust not the future, not the outcome, but yourself, your soul, your center. This is the liberation the saints spoke of. The freedom the mystics danced in, the peace the sages pointed to when they said, be still and know. Know what? Know that you are already home. Know that the wings were never outside of you. Know that everything you've ever sought is not in the distance, it is within. But it cannot be felt while carrying weight that was never meant to be yours. So lay it down, beloved soul. Lay down the proving. Lay down the defending. Lay down the striving. Lay down the waiting for permission. You are allowed to be light. You are allowed to be free. You are allowed to fly, not someday, not when it all makes sense, not when they apologize, but now. Now is your moment. Now is your portal. Now is the beginning of the rest of your flight. When the soul begins to remember its weightlessness, a quiet revolution takes place. Not in the external world, but in the inner kingdom. This is the true uprising, not against others, not against life, but against the false self you've been conditioned to carry. This uprising is not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need applause. It simply refuses to carry what is no longer aligned with light. And in this refusal, a powerful truth emerges. You are not here to hold on. You are here to flow through. You are not a container for pain. You are a vessel for presence. And presence is too sacred to be filled with what is no longer real. So